There are moments in life, sacred, unexplainable moments, when something inside you senses a shift. You may be standing in your kitchen, driving in silence, or lying awake in the dim light of early morning, and suddenly the atmosphere feels different. You feel a tightening in your spirit, a stirring you can't quite articulate. It's as though the air itself is speaking, though no words are audible. Your heart beats a little faster, your thoughts sharpen. Something inside whispers, "Pay attention." And deep down, you know you are not imagining it, you are discerning it. Because when you walk with God, your spirit picks up on what your eyes cannot see. These are the moments when God alerts you to the unseen, not to frighten you, but to prepare you, not to overwhelm you, but to remind you that the spiritual realm is active, alive, moving. There are forces that war against your peace, your purpose, your destiny. The enemy plots in shadows, hoping you never rise in your authority. But here is the truth. As soon as God's presence fills your spirit with awareness, the enemy loses his advantage because divine discernment is a weapon. It exposes what darkness hoped to keep hidden. It reveals the traps, the plans, the assignments designed to steal your joy or drain your strength. And yet, even in those moments of spiritual sensitivity, God does not leave you trembling. He does not leave you overwhelmed or anxious. Instead, he reminds you that he is your fortress, your shield, your defender who never sleeps and never steps away. That's when the quiet reassurance of his word rises in your mind. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. It may form, but it cannot finish. It may start, but it cannot succeed because heaven is on your side. This is the confidence of a believer who understands spiritual reality. You are not helpless. You are not vulnerable. You are not wandering through life unarmed or unprotected. You are covered by a God who sees every invisible arrow before it's released, every scheme before it's drafted, every threat before it even approaches your life. And he cancels it silently, powerfully, decisively. There are battles you never had to fight because God ended them before you knew they began. There are attacks you never felt because God blocked them before they touched you. There are assignments against your destiny that God dismantled without allowing a trace of their impact to remain. That's why prayer matters. Prayer locks you into divine awareness. Prayer positions you inside God's protective covering. Prayer aligns you with heaven's agenda and disconnects you from every demonic plot. When you pray, when you pause long enough to seek his presence, you step out of fear and into authority. You step out of confusion and into clarity. You step out of vulnerability and into victory. And suddenly, even the things you cannot see begin to bow under the weight of God's power moving on your behalf. So when those unexpected moments come, when something shifts in your spirit, when you feel a holy alert rising within you, don't panic. Don't spiral. Don't assume the worst. Instead, say, "Lord, I hear you, I feel you, and I trust you," because he is not only revealing the battle, he is assuring you of the victory. God is not pointing out danger. He is highlighting his protection. He is reminding you that nothing, absolutely nothing, can reach you without passing through his presence first. And his presence is an impenetrable fortress no enemy can cross. When you open your mouth and invite God's protection into your life, something powerful shifts in the atmosphere. You're not just saying words, you are opening a divine gate. You are signaling heaven to surround you like a fortress, to wrap your life in layers of supernatural defense that no enemy can penetrate. It is a moment when the natural gives way to the spiritual, when human limitation steps aside and divine intervention steps in. Because when you say, "Lord, protect me," you are not begging. You are aligning yourself with the covenant God already established. You are stepping into what he has always desired for you: safety, peace, and divine covering. There is a beauty in surrendering to God's guardianship. Think of it like standing under the shelter of a mighty, ancient tree during a violent storm. The winds may howl, the lightning may flash, the thunder may shake the earth beneath your feet, But the branches above you do not break. They shield you. They block what was meant to harm you. They stand firm, unwavering, immovable. That is what God becomes in your life when you ask for his protection. Not a distant thought, not a fragile hope, but a strong, unshakable refuge that absorbs every blow the enemy tries to send your way. And when you invite his protection, you invite his presence, the presence that restores, the presence that heals, the presence that brings order to chaos, the presence that unmasks every deception and reveals every hidden danger. God's protection is not passive, it is active, living, dynamic. It is the kind of protection that goes before you when you wake up in the morning and follows you as you lay your head down at night. It is the kind that stands at the doorway of your home, at the gates of your mind, at the threshold of your spirit. It guards your peace. It shields your purpose. It secures your destiny. There have been times, more times than you know, when God redirected you, delayed you, or interrupted you not to frustrate you, but to protect you. A conversation you didn't have, a meeting that got postponed, a path you didn't take, a plan that fell apart, and you wondered why. Only later did you realize that it wasn't rejection, it wasn't coincidence, it was divine protection stepping in, blocking what you never saw, preventing what you didn't know was coming. When you ask for God's protection, you activate the host of heaven. Angels begin to move quietly, strategically, powerfully. They guard your steps. They minister to your spirit. They stand watch over your life. You become encircled by divine forces that operate with precision, that dismantle darkness long before it ever reaches you. You walk with a shield you cannot see but can absolutely feel, a shield that strengthens your confidence and quiets your fears. And there is something sacred about knowing that you are not fighting alone, that God himself has taken responsibility for your safety, that his eyes are on you when yours are closed, that his hand is steady when your heart is trembling, that he is refusing access to anything that does not align with his purpose for your life. When you invite his protection, you remind your soul that you are never outnumbered, never outmatched, never uncovered. You are surrounded completely, intentionally, divinely by the one who has never lost a battle. So every time you pray, Lord, surround me, know that heaven responds, know that God rises, know that protection begins to flow like a river around your life, and know that whatever was meant to harm you loses its power the moment his presence steps in front of you. When you stand in the authority God has given you, something changes, not just around you, but within you. You begin to understand that prayer is not merely a request, it is a decree, a declaration, a spiritual command. It is you exercising the divine power God has placed in your mouth. It is you stepping into the identity heaven recognizes, even if the world does not. Because when a believer prays with authority, heaven responds, hell trembles, and the atmosphere bends to the word of God spoken through your lips. Authority is not loudness. It is not anger. It is not force. Authority is alignment. It is knowing who you are in God and who God is in you. It is realizing that the same spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells inside you, breathes within you, speaks through you. And when you declare a thing in faith, you are not hoping. It becomes law in the spirit realm. The enemy may resist, but he cannot overturn what God establishes and what you enforce through prayer. When you pray with authority, you don't just ask God to remove the enemy's plans, you dismantle them, you interrupt them, you render them powerless. You drop a spiritual verdict that says, this attack is illegal, this assignment is canceled. This weapon is defeated, and heaven backs your decree. Angels move, darkness breaks, chains fall, barriers crumble, because your authority is not rooted in your strength. It is rooted in the name, the blood, and the word of Jesus Christ. There are moments in life when fear tries to creep in, whispering that you are outnumbered or overwhelmed. But when you remember your authority, fear has no place to rest. Fear cannot stay in a heart that knows it carries divine power. You begin to speak differently, think differently, stand differently. You don't shrink back, you rise up. You don't surrender, you resist. You don't panic, you proclaim. And with every proclamation, you push back the darkness that tries to edge its way into your life. Imagine a soldier standing on the battlefield. His enemies surround him, yet he does not tremble. Why? Because he knows what he carries. He knows the strength behind him. He knows the authority he holds. That is you in the spirit. You don't look like someone who is losing. You look like someone who heaven has equipped with weapons that cannot fail. Prayer becomes your sword. Faith becomes your shield. Your voice becomes your weapon. And every time you speak the word of God, it cuts through the enemy's strategies like lightning slicing through the sky. This is why you must never underestimate your voice. The enemy doesn't fear your personality, your possessions, or your position, but he fears your authority. He fears the moment you realize that you are not powerless. He fears the moment you recognize that you can bind what he tries to release and loose what heaven has assigned to you. He fears the moment you decide to stand in your identity as a child of God, a warrior of light, a carrier of divine fire. So when you pray, pray like someone who knows the outcome is already shifting. Pray like someone who knows that the gates of hell cannot stand against you. Pray like someone who understands that every word you speak in faith sends shockwaves through the kingdom of darkness. Pray like someone who knows that victory is not a possibility, it is your inheritance. Because when you stand in your God-given authority, the enemy's plans don't just weaken, they collapse, they disintegrate, they scatter, and you rise, not shaken, not fearful, but empowered, covered, and armed with the unstoppable force of God working through you. When you understand that God goes ahead of you, guiding you, shielding you, securing every step you take, your entire posture in life changes. You stop walking like someone who is uncertain, anxious, or unprotected. You begin to carry yourself with a quiet, unshakable confidence because you know you are not moving through your day alone. You are being led. You are being watched over. You are being covered by a God who sees the path long before you step onto it. And when he goes before you, nothing behind you, nothing beside you, and nothing in front of you can derail what he has ordained. There is a peace that settles over your mind when you know that the God of heaven has already stepped into your tomorrow. He has inspected the road. He has cleared the traps. He has removed the obstacles. He has silenced the threats. He has planted blessings where the enemy once planned destruction. You walk through your day with a sense of divine assurance because you understand that every moment you enter is a moment God has already touched. He has already been there, preparing, protecting, positioning things in your favor. Think about how comforting it is to know that God does not wait for danger to arrive before he responds. He anticipates it. He intercepts it. He cancels it before it manifests. You may never know the full extent of what God shielded you from. You may never see the dangers that were blocked, the harm that was diverted, the enemy's plans that were vaporized before they reached your life. But you feel the peace. You feel the safety. You feel the gentle confidence blooming inside you as you move forward with certainty, not because the world is peaceful, but because God is with you in the midst of it. And there is something powerful about waking up in the morning and knowing that the first presence you step into is not the chaos of life, but the covering of God. His presence meets you before your feet hit the floor. His protection wraps around you before you walk out your door. His guidance goes ahead of you before you make a single decision. Even when you are unaware, he is directing your thoughts, steering your steps, and whispering to your spirit, this is the way, walk in it. You do not drift. You do not wander aimlessly. You move with purpose because God is leading you with intention. Walking in daily confidence doesn't mean the absence of challenges. It means the presence of divine backing. It means that even when storms rise, you don't fear them because you know who commands the winds. It means that even when the enemy tries to intimidate you, you refuse to shrink back because you know whose armor you wear. It means that when confusion tries to cloud your mind, you don't lose your footing because God is the one ordering your steps and his steps never falter. This confidence becomes a shield around your heart. It silences the lies that say you're unprotected or exposed. It dismantles the fear that whispers you're vulnerable or alone. It replaces doubt with faith, anxiety with assurance, hesitation with holy boldness. You begin to walk with your head lifted, your spirit steady, your soul anchored, not because everything is perfect, but because you are perfectly covered. And every time you move forward with that kind of God-centered confidence, the atmosphere responds. Doors open, paths straighten, attacks lose their power. You become untouchable, not because you're strong on your own, but because you're walking with the one who never loses a battle, never misses a threat, never leaves your side. God's presence becomes your compass. His protection becomes your armor. His guidance becomes your advantage. So as you step into each day, carry this truth in your spirit. You are walking under divine leadership. You are moving with heaven's escort. You are covered by a protection so strong that no enemy can penetrate it, no darkness can overshadow it, and no plan of evil can override it. You walk with confidence because God himself walks with you. Living in victory is not a moment, it is a mindset. It is a way of seeing yourself, your future, and your God through a lens that is shaped not by fear, but by faith. When you realize that the same God who protected you, the same God who canceled every evil assignment, the same God who covered you in moments you didn't even know danger was near, that same God has called you to live boldly, courageously, and confidently. Something in your spirit shifts. You stop approaching life like someone trying to survive. You start walking like someone destined to overcome. Victory is not loud. Sometimes it is quiet. It is the calm strength that rises in your heart even when external circumstances are shaking. It is the conviction that whispers, God is with me and I will not break. It is the subtle but powerful assurance that every battle you face is one God has already equipped you to win. Victory is waking up in the morning with peace as your companion and confidence as your armor, knowing that nothing you encounter today can overpower the one who walks beside you. And when you choose to live in victory, your perspective changes. You stop interpreting challenges as threats and begin to see them as opportunities for God to reveal his strength through you. You stop seeing setbacks as punishment and begin to see them as setups for something greater. You stop worrying about what the enemy might do and start celebrating what God is already doing. Living in victory means your eyes are on the one who has never lost, not on the weapons formed, not on the whispers of fear, not on the shadows of uncertainty. Victory gives you a new way of talking. Your language shifts. You stop saying, I hope I make it, and you begin declaring, I'll overcome. You stop saying, I'm afraid of what's coming, and start proclaiming, God has already gone before me. You stop saying, I don't know if I can handle this, and boldly declare, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Your words begin to match heaven's report instead of echoing earthly fear. Living in victory also means refusing to let your past dictate your future. You understand that God did not bring you this far to abandon you. Every attack you survived, every storm you endured, every battle that tried to break you but failed, all serve as evidence that you were built for destiny. They remind you that grace carried you, favor covered you, mercy kept you, and God's hand never lifted from your life. You are not defined by where you came from. You are propelled by where God is taking you. And as you walk in victory, your presence begins to shift the atmosphere around you. People feel peace when you enter a room. Fear loses its grip when you speak. Darkness retreats because your spirit carries the weight of someone who knows they are backed by heaven. Your confidence is not arrogance. It is alignment with your identity in God. You walk taller, speak clearer, and move with intentionality because you know who you belong to. Victory empowers you to dream again. It gives you the courage to reach for what once felt impossible. You begin to expect goodness, anticipate breakthroughs, and prepare for blessings. You wake up not with dread, but with hope, not with hesitation, but with excitement for what God is about to unfold. You understand that the same God who protected you from attacks is the God who propels you into purpose. And as you live in this victory, you become a testimony, a living example of God's power. People may wonder how you stayed afloat, how you kept going, how you never broke. That they won't understand that it wasn't your strength. It was God's covering, God's guidance, God's fire surrounding you. Victory becomes your story, your posture, your atmosphere. Because when God protects you, He doesn't just keep you alive, He positions you to thrive. He doesn't just shield you from harm, He launches you into destiny. He doesn't just cancel the enemy's attacks. He opens doors the enemy never wanted you to walk through. You begin living not as a survivor, but as a conqueror, not as someone barely making it, but as someone rising into the fullness of who God created you to be. You live with your head high, heart steady, faith bold, and spirit unshakable because you know the victory is already yours. And when you finally begin to walk in the fullness of God's protection and victory, something happens deep inside you. You develop a resilience that is not easily shaken. It's not the kind of resilience that comes from forcing yourself to be strong. It's the resilience that comes from knowing you are held, knowing you are backed by heaven, knowing that every time the enemy tried to take you out, God stood between you and the attack and said, not this one, not today, not ever. You begin to understand that your survival was not luck, not coincidence, not your own strength. It was divine intervention at every turn. This knowing becomes a foundation beneath your feet. It steadies you when waves rise. It stabilizes you when life attempts to knock you off balance. You carry within you a quiet but unbreakable assurance that says, I've been kept for a reason. I've been preserved for a purpose. I've been protected because there is something in me that heaven intends to release into the world. And when you live from that revelation, fear loses its grip, anxiety loses its influence. Every lie the enemy tries to whisper loses its power because you have evidence of God's faithfulness etched into your soul. You begin to see your journey differently. You recognize moments when you almost fell apart but didn't, times you should have lost your mind but held on, nights you cried, prayed, trembled, but still woke up with strength you didn't know you had. You realize that every valley you walked through was not a sign of God's absence, but a demonstration of His presence. Every trial became a classroom where you learned endurance. Every attack became a testimony waiting to be birthed. Every hardship built a stronger, wiser, more spiritually fortified version of you. And this inner strength transforms the way you handle life. You no longer overreact to storms because you know who commands the winds. You no longer panic when the enemy roars because you recognize the roar is empty without authority. You no longer crumble under pressure because you've learned that crushed places produce oil, anointing that cannot be manufactured any other way. What once intimidated you now reminds you of God's ability to uphold you. You begin to move with intentionality, knowing your steps are ordered. You stop chasing validation and start pursuing purpose. You stop begging for acceptance and start standing in identity. You stop trying to prove your worth and start living from the truth that God has already called you chosen, favored, protected, and appointed. You understand that the attacks on your life were never about your weakness. They were about your calling. The enemy saw what God placed in you long before you recognized it yourself. This awareness births a new level of gratitude. You start thanking God not just for the blessings you can see, but for the battles you never had to fight. You thank Him for the closed doors that saved your life, for the relationships that ended before they could damage you, for the sudden shifts that pulled you out of danger before you knew it existed. Gratitude becomes a shield, protecting your heart from bitterness, frustration, and discouragement. It keeps your spirit lifted and your faith alive. This is where true spiritual maturity blossoms. You stop reacting from emotion and begin responding from revelation. You walk through your day knowing you carry divine covering. You handle opposition with calmness because you know God fights for you. You face challenges with confidence because you know they cannot defeat you. You rise each morning with expectation because you know God has gone before you. You rest at night with peace because you know He is watching over you. And gradually you become a light, radiant, steady, grounded. People may not understand how you stay calm, how you remain hopeful, how you continue to glow even after all you've been through. But deep down, you know your glow is not from you. It is from God's glory resting on your life. You shine because He covered you. You stand because He held you. You thrive because He protected you. You rise because His hand never let go. This is the life God intended for you. Stable, confident, unafraid, rooted in Him. A life where His protection is not just something you pray for, but something you live in, breathe in, and walk in every single day. A life where victory is not just an outcome, but an identity woven into your spirit by the one who overcame every enemy on your behalf. And as you continue to walk in this divine strength, you begin to notice something extraordinary happening. You no longer respond to life from the place of who you used to be, but from the person God is shaping you into. The old version of you that panicked, doubted, feared, hesitated, and second guessed begins to fade away. A new version emerges, stronger, wiser, more grounded, more spiritually attuned. You start carrying yourself with a quiet authority that doesn't need to be announced, but is felt everywhere you go. People may not know what changed in you, but they can sense it. You have been fortified by God. You begin to understand that everything you've endured was intentional. Every hardship was permitted not to destroy you, but to develop you. Every opposition was allowed not to weaken you, but to awaken you. Every battle sharpened your spirit. Every trial stretched your faith. Every challenge strengthened your endurance. The very things the enemy sent to break you became the tools God used to build you. And now you stand taller, not because life became easier, but because your spirit became stronger. And this strength doesn't roar, it radiates. You don't need to prove yourself because God has already proven His hand on your life. You don't need to fight every battle because you've learned which ones belong to the Lord. You don't need to defend your destiny because you know God Himself is guarding it. You begin to move with a confidence that is not loud or aggressive, but unmistakable, an inner knowing that says, I cannot be shaken. I cannot be moved. God is with me, and that is enough. You start seeing the enemy's attacks differently. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you discern their purpose. And instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin saying something greater must be coming. Instead of aligning with fear, you align with faith. You interpret spiritual warfare not as a sign of weakness, but as confirmation of your value in the kingdom of God. The enemy doesn't attack what has no potential. He attacks what has power, purpose, and prophetic weight. So every time you feel pressure, you know promotion is near. Every time resistance rises, breakthrough is approaching. Every time darkness pushes, light is about to burst forth. And there comes a point, quiet but defining, when you realize that you are no longer living in survival mode. You are living in spiritual mastery. You are no longer reacting. You are discerning. You are no longer shrinking. You are standing. You are no longer running from battles. You are confronting them with boldness because you know who fights for you. The things that once intimidated you no longer have the same power. The fears that once controlled you no longer grip you. The confusion that once clouded you no longer consumes you. You have grown spiritually, mentally, emotionally in ways you never imagined. Your discernment sharpens. You sense danger before it forms. You feel deception before it speaks. You detect spiritual shifts long before others notice them. Not because you are special, but because God has trained your spirit. He has heightened your awareness, tuned your ears to his voice, and refined your spiritual instincts so you can navigate life with precision and wisdom. You begin to see with clarity, hear with sensitivity, and move with intentionality because your spirit is aligned with heaven. And this alignment gives you a peace that isn't fragile, but fortified. A peace that doesn't crumble when storms rise, but becomes stronger. A peace that stands tall even in the presence of chaos. A peace that protects your mind, guards your heart, and anchors your soul. You wake up each day not wondering what the enemy is planning, but confident in what God has already secured. You walk through your day not looking over your shoulder, but looking ahead with expectation. You rest at night not in fear of what could happen, but in gratitude for what God has prevented. What once felt like constant warfare now feels like consistent victory. What once felt like vulnerability now feels like divine backing. What once felt like pressure now feels like purpose. You realize you are not just being protected by God, you are being equipped, elevated, and empowered by him. You are becoming someone the enemy fears because you have learned to stand firm, speak boldly, pray with authority, and walk with unwavering faith. This is the evolution of someone who has been covered by God, guided by God, strengthened by God, and shaped through spiritual fire. Your life becomes a testament of resilience, faith, and supernatural grace. And every step you take from this point forward carries the imprint of someone who has walked through battles, survived every attack, and emerged not wounded, but wiser, not weakened, but fortified, not defeated, but destined. The moment you begin to declare God's protection over your life, something in the atmosphere shifts. You may not see it with your natural eyes, but in the realm of the spirit, angels rise to their stations, assignments are activated, and demonic strategies begin to crumble like sand under a rising tide. When you speak, Lord, surround me with your fire. That fire does not flicker weakly. It blazes with the intensity of heaven's authority. It becomes a barrier, a shield, a wall the enemy cannot penetrate. Every plot that was quietly forming behind the scenes, every whisper of darkness that sought to invade your peace, every arrow released in silence begins to burn before it ever reaches its intended target. There is something about a believer who knows how to pray, not softly, not timidly, but with the conviction of someone who knows heaven listens. As you declare God's covering, you start to sense a divine confidence rising in you. You no longer walk into your day wondering what may come against you because you understand who goes before you. You begin to move with a presence that confuses your enemies, not because you are strong on your own, but because the one who stands with you is unshakable, unstoppable, and undefeated. His protection is not thin like the fabric of human promises. It is thick, impenetrable, and rooted in eternal power. When you say, God, cancel every evil attack, you are invoking the one who has never lost a battle, the one who sees ambushes before they appear, the one who dismantles traps before your feet even come near them. You start to feel layers of fear falling away. You realize that the enemy's greatest weapon is not the attack. It is the fear of the attack. But when you invoke the name of the Lord, fear loses its grip. It slips from your mind. It loosens from your chest. It releases its claws from your spirit. You begin to breathe differently. You begin to stand differently. You begin to think differently. It is not arrogance. It is spiritual alignment. It is the awareness that you are not walking through life exposed. You are wrapped in divine protection, surrounded on every side, covered by God's hand that refuses to let you fall. And as you continue to pray, your discernment sharpens. You no longer step into situations blindly. You begin to sense when something is off. You feel the Holy Spirit tug at your heart, whispering, "Not this way. Don't trust that voice. Step back and wait. Move now." That guidance is part of God's protection. It is Him redirecting you away from the plans that were designed to weaken you. It is Him pulling you out of the reach of people who are not for your good. It is Him shielding you from conversations that were meant to discourage you. It is Him blocking the influence of environments that could contaminate your peace. And suddenly you realize God's protection is not only about stopping the enemy, it is also about positioning you for victory. He is not just closing doors, He is opening the right ones. He is not just canceling attacks, He is establishing blessings. He is not just preventing harm, He is preparing honor, because when God protects you, it is not only a defense, it is a setup for promotion, elevation, and breakthrough. His covering is a sign that what He has planned for your life is too precious, too purposeful, too powerful to be contaminated by the enemy's agenda. And when you pray with that understanding, your spirit awakens to the reality that you are safeguarded by the King of Glory, and no weapon formed against you, none can prosper in the presence of His overwhelming power.